Hey guys, it's Pinks. I just wanted to make a follow-up to my Succession Maehwa guide, specifically for my PvE combo, kind of going in depth on how to rotate skills properly, since I didn't cover it fully in my guide. So I'm just going to break down how I typically do my PvE combo at most zones and kind of go over my add-ons and the reason I do what I do. So my add-on setup, I don't put add-ons on Whirlwind Cut, even though it's a really good DP down skill, simply because of the cooldown duration. With the cooldown being so short, it has a hard time overlapping with other DP shred add-ons, and so I just don't like to use it. Instead, I use Carver for my DP shred add-on, and I like to put the DP add-on on abilities that natively DP shred. That's just preferably how I like to do it. So I'm usually always going to start my rotation, if I'm not pre-pulling, with Carver into Blind Thrust. So Carver has my extra AP against monsters up and my DP shred to get the most damage I can immediately. And then I will always Blind Thrust after Carver to proc my accuracy rate, which isn't that important, but I've got attack speed on Blind Thrust. So proccing attack speed, DP down, and extra AP against monsters in 2 hits, as well as applying your native DP down, is just going to be really efficient, even if you need to use them on cooldown. So for a standard pack, assuming you're not pre-pulling, which I guess I'll go over pre-pulling first. If you're at something like Golden Pig, I like to go up to a pig. Let's say this is a pig, and then there's a pig, and a pig. I will go to one of the pigs, and I will just animation cancel my arrow, and just hit all of the packs and just wait for them to group up on this guy, and then I'll start my rotation. If I'm at DSR or something, and I kill the pack of 2, let's say, and they explode and spawn the small ones, I will Whirlwind Cut just for some damage, I'll Razorblade Corolla, and then I'll start doing my Red Blade Divider until everybody packs up, and then I start my standard rotation. Those are the only types of pre-pulling that I do, so we'll just go into the standard rotation, which I guess isn't so standard. So this is going to work whether you have E buff, Z buff, or both of them up at once. It's just going to change the speed at which you have to do things. So with my add-ons, I always start, like I said, with Carver, both hits, into Blind Thrust, and I sometimes go into Decap and Petal Swirl, sometimes I don't. I don't really have important add-ons on either of them, and if I use them later in my combo, they're still as useful even if I didn't use them earlier. So what I'll typically do, we'll say without doing Decap and Petal Swirl first, I'll go Carver, Blind Thrust, Redmoon, and then both my Raybams, Chase Cancel into Blooming, and then after that, you're just doing filler. So you're doing whatever filler you have at the moment. I usually prioritize Razorblade Corolla, and then Divider, and then Whirlwind Cut, and then things like Blind Slash or another Blind Thrust into Decapitation and Sticky Snowflake or Petal Swirl. I don't really use Dragon Bite at all, and I don't really use Frost Feint at all, but they can be slotted in if you need them. So that is the standard order by which I do skills. I will always prioritize Carver and Blind Thrust to reproc add-ons or to initiate a rotation. And then I will always prioritize Redmoon in conjunction with Chaos Crimson Gust, and then Blooming, and then Razorblade Corolla, Divider, and then Whirlwind Cut, as well as Blind Slash, Decapitation, Petal Swirl. Those are all kind of in the same rating in terms of priority. I didn't mention Decapitating Dragon, and that's because there's kind of a special rule. I like to only use Chaos Crimson Gust after Redmoon, and Decapitating Dragon flows after Gust. So naturally, you will have Chaos Crimson Gust and Decapitating Dragon up every second time that you Redmoon, and that will also align with Blooming cooldown. So what you'll see here, I will Redmoon, Raybam, Chase Cancel, Blooming. And you'll see that Blooming and Chaos Crimson Gust line up almost perfectly, so you will always have that rotation of skills every second time you use Redmoon, right? Now that can change with Decapitating Dragon because sometimes Decapitating Dragon will come back online before Chaos Crimson Gust or before Blooming, and you need filler. So sometimes I will use Blooming Stride into Decapitating Dragon, which you can just do with the same LMB Flow, like that. And I usually follow that up with something like Blind Thrust or Blind Slash into whatever skills that I have. So I'm just going to hit this mob for a while. I'm not going to explain what I'm doing because that's essentially the basis of what I'm doing. And I'm just going to show you kind of how I rotate skills. And then at some point I'm going to swap it and I'm going to incorporate Blooming Stride into my rotation and only use Chaos Crimson Gust after Redmoon instead of both. Okay? And I think that's enough to kind of show how I rotate my skills there. You'll notice that I E-buffed and I Z-buffed, so that's the fastest you're going to have to rotate skills unless you're shy buffed at something like Dolan's, at which point you will have to use a number of skills while they're on cooldown. If you are forced to use skills while they're on cooldown, of course you can still use Carver and you can use Blind Thrust as needed to proc your add-ons. But otherwise, you should try to stick to Blind Thrust Decapitation into Petal Swirl as your on cooldown filler. You can do Whirlwind Cut to animation cancel out of them to get into something a little bit more fluently if you'd like. But otherwise, that's just kind of how I rotate skills. There's no real way to explain it. I just kind of look at my cooldown list here and I use what's available when I can. Like I said, obvious preference is given to things like Redmoon, my Raybams, and Blooming. Other than that, unless I need to reproc Carver or Blind Thrust, or unless I need to use them because I'm out of skills otherwise, I'm just using any of these filler skills the best I can. If you're a newer Succession Maehwa to grinding, then I would recommend essentially full casting Divider for the entirety of its duration. There will be times where I cut my rotation short, like let's say I've used Redmoon and such, blah blah blah, right? And then I start using Divider and I see Redmoon's off cooldown, I will cancel Divider early to start my, essentially like my rotation again with Redmoon. Um, but unless you're really comfortable with using skills as they come off of cooldown, fully extending Divider is going to be a little bit easier for you and take the time pressure off. You're going to have a little bit more time to allow other skills to come off of cooldown. One other point too, I generally don't use Stride into Decapitating Dragon unless I really need to. The only time I really do this is if I kind of mess up my cooldowns at DSR by accident, or if I'm at Golden Pig Cave and I'm killing the final boss, because the final boss has so much AP, or sorry, HP, and that you're hitting him for so long. Eventually the cooldowns are going to line up in a way that's going to um, essentially persuade you to use Blooming Stride into Decapitating Dragon just so you can kill him a bit faster. But because it's a time-capped boss anyway, it doesn't really matter. If you are using Blooming Stride into Decapitating Dragon, it's important to note that when you Redmoon into Chaos Crimson Gust like this, you can immediately go into Blooming. You don't need to chase cancel like I was when I was using both of my Raybams. So what that is going to look like, it's only really going to work if you have Decapitating Dragon on cooldown. So if I make sure that this is on cooldown, right, then I can just go Redmoon, Gust, and then hold the buttons for blooming, and it'll just come out by itself. You don't need to do any chase cancel or whatever you were doing prior to your rotation when Decapitating Dragon wasn't on cooldown. But I hope that helps. If you have any questions, throw them in the comments, and I'll try to respond as fast as I can. See you guys.